In this part, we'll start discussing the male reproductive system, and we'll talk about the testis, the process of spermatogenesis, and the structure of the sperm. So the functions of the male reproductive organs would be to develop the male sex cells, to transport semen to the outside of the body, and to synthesize and produce the male sex hormones. The primary sex organ, or the gonads, those are the two testes, in which, again, the testis is responsible for spermatogenesis and the production of the male sex hormones. Any other structures in the male reproductive system are known as the accessory sex organs. Some of these are internal, inside of the pelvic cavity, while others are external. Here you can see the different parts of the male reproductive system where, again, the testis is suspended outside of the body in a sac known as the scrotum. You can find the epididymis that is superior and posterior to the testis, and then followed by this tube-like structure known as the vas deferens or the vas deferentia, so the ductus or the vas deferens. And you can find a couple of glands, 3 glands actually, the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands. All of these glands are going to be discussed individually in the next tutorial. And then followed by the urethra that will take the semen to the outside of the body. Here you can see the male reproductive system, a posterior view, where again you can see the testis, the epididymis, the vas deferens, and how this is a posterior view again. So this is the posterior wall of the urinary bladder. And connected there you can find now the glands are going to dump their secretions into the ejaculatory duct. So there are the 2 seminal vesicles, there's 1 prostate gland, and there are 2 bulbourethral glands. All of that will get out of the body through the urethra. Now the descent of the testis. This happens in utero. So the primordial tissue, or what will develop into the testis in males, that tissue is found on top of the kidney. It is just a mass of tissue that is found behind the peritoneum, and it's very close to the kidney. A couple of months before birth, now this tissue that developed into a testis is going to start producing testosterone, and testosterone will trigger what is known as the descent of the testis. So you'd imagine if that testis was by the kidneys, so it's all the way up in the abdomen, and it would have to descend all the way down to the scrotum. So that descent is known as the descent of the testis. It is pulled or guided by this ligament-like structure known as the gubernaculum that again starts to shorten and pulls the testis with it until it is housed into the scrotum. The testis, just like any organ, needs blood supply, so it needs an artery, vein, it needs nerves, lymphatics. All of those are going to be pulled down with it through a route or a passageway, and that route is known as the inguinal canal. All of the structures that were pulled with it are known as the spermatic cord. So the spermatic cord would have the blood supply, it would have the nerves, the lymphatics, and it will also have the ductus deferens. Now for the structure of the testis, testis is surrounded by a fibrous capsule known as the tunica albuginea. And then the testis has these little septa or separators that divides the testis into lobules. Okay, so these lobules, there's about 250 different compartments in the testis. Each compartment or each lobules have tubules. Those are known as the seminiferous tubules. These are very highly coiled tubes that are found within these lobules. These seminiferous tubules are lined by very specific kind of epithelium known as with cells known as the spermatogenic cells. These spermatogenic cells are going to end up making sperm. In between the seminiferous tubules, there are interstitial cells. Those are known as the interstitial cells of Leydig, and those are the cells that produce the male sex hormones. So let's take a look at a picture of the structure of the testis. You could find the tunica albuginea that surrounds each individual testis. You could also see these separators in between, separating or dividing the testis into lobules. So this would be one lobule and there is another. And each lobule has these twisted coils known as the seminiferous tubules. If you take a cross section in one of these seminiferous tubules, you'll end up with this circle. You can find a basement membrane lined with these very specialized kind of epithelium known as spermatogonia. So spermatogonia are going to make sperms. And the spermatogonia will undergo the meiotic division, where the division process occurs through as we go towards the middle of the lumen, and you can see here now where the sperm cells are in the middle. So the ones that are closer to the basement membrane are the very primitive kinds of cells, and they develop gradually until in the lumen we are now producing the more mature sperm cells, although they are not fully mature here in the lobules. Scattered within the spermatogonia are other cells known as the sustenticular cells of Sertoli. Those sustenticular cells of Sertoli all starts with S, and they help in the process of spermatogenesis that also starts with an S. In between the lobules, within the interstitial cells, there are what are known as the interstitial cells of Leydig, and these cells are responsible for producing the male sex hormones. Now for the formation of sperm cells or spermatogenesis, remember that the process is aided or helped by these and supported by these sustenticular cells of Sertoli. They are there to support and nourish these spermatogenic cells as they go through the whole process. And the process starts with a spermatogonia. The spermatogonia, through mitosis and differentiation. Mitosis means it's not meiosis. So spermatogonia are going to make lots of copies of themselves, and then differentiate means to grow up a little or to develop, to mature into a primary spermatocyte. It's the primary spermatocyte that undergoes the first meiotic division to become a secondary spermatocyte. Now the secondary spermatocyte divides by the second meiotic division to become a spermatid. A spermatid is a kid sperm. It is not mature. It has to mature into a spermatozoa. That maturation process of a spermatid into a spermatozoa is known as spermiogenesis. So spermatogenesis is the meiotic division plus spermiogenesis, while spermiogenesis is the development or the maturation of the spermatid into a sperm. And if you could take a look at the image here, again, spermatogonia, these are going to become sperms. They undergo mitosis to make lots of copies of that spermatogonia, and then they mature or develop into or specialize into these primary spermatocytes. That primary spermatocyte is still 46 chromosomes. Each chromosome has 2 chromatids. It will divide by the first meiotic division to make 2 secondary spermatocytes. Each secondary spermatocyte has 23 chromosomes, but still with the 2 chromatids. So remember, we have to undergo that secondary meiotic division to make 4 spermatids. Each spermatid has 23 chromosomes, but now each chromosome has only 1 chromatid. These spermatids would have to develop into mature sperms, and that process is known as spermiogenesis. So make sure you know the difference between spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. And you can see here where the whole process starts, where this is the basement membrane of the seminiferous tubules, and the process develops as you go through towards the lumen or towards the middle of the seminiferous tubules, and it is always supported by the sustenticular cells. So what is the structure of a sperm cell? The sperm cell has a head, a midpiece, and a tail known as the flagellum. The head has the nucleus that has, again, the 23 chromosomes, one chromatid each, and it has a cap on top. That cap is known as the acrosome. The cap is right above the nucleus, and it has all of the enzymes that it would need in order to penetrate the cells that surround the egg during fertilization. The midpiece has the mitochondria, and the mitochondria will supply the sperm with all of the energy or the ATP that it needs for swimming. And the tail or the flagellum has microtubules that are going to help in the swimming process. And here you can see the structure in an image. So this is the head of the sperm, that's the midpiece, and this is the tail or the flagellum. Again, the head has the nucleus, and there's the acrosome cap that has all of the enzymes needed to assist in fertilization. Now the midpiece has tons of mitochondria to produce ATP, and then the flagellum, or the tail, that is going to help in the swimming process. In the next part, we will discuss the accessory organs in the male reproductive system.